I heard you say there's no swing instructor going to tell him how he feels hitting a golf ball. He's got to figure that out.
Can't. Tiger Woods is Tiger Woods. He hasn't lost his talent. First of all, he's never had an instructor that could beat him. How the hell can you listen to somebody you can't beat?
There is a man in golf who looked another player dead in the eye and basically called him a loser. Not quietly, not behind closed doors. He said it out loud for the entire world to hear. And the thing that made it hit so hard is that the man saying it had every single right to say it. When Lee Trevino calls someone too arrogant for this game, that is not a cheap shot from the stands. That is a verdict from a man who built his entire life and career on one unbreakable rule. Earn it first, then talk. Trevino was born with nothing in Garland, Texas. He came up through caddy sheds and gambling circuits across El Paso, served in the United States Marine Corps, and taught himself every part of his golf game from the ground up without a single coach. No guru, no system. Just the dirt, the feel in his hands, and thousands of hours of hard, honest work. He went on to win 6 major championships and 29 PGA Tour events. So when a man like that looks at 5 of the most famous names in professional golf and says, they crossed a line, you had better pay attention. If this kind of straight talking, no sugarcoat golf content is your thing, use the hype feature right now and give this video some hype while we get into the first name. Today we are going from number 5 all the way down to number 1. The further down the list we go, the more personal the story gets, and the deeper the Trevino standard cuts. By the time we reach number 1, you will understand exactly what Lee Trevino believes separates the great ones from the arrogant ones. Number 5, Phil Mickelson. We start here because this is the most recent flashpoint and probably the one that made Trevino the angriest. Cast your mind back to 2014. The Ryder Cup was held at Gleneagles in Scotland. Tom Watson was the United States captain. He had spent 2 years preparing for that job. 2 years of meetings, planning, and dedication to a team he genuinely believed in, and the Americans still lost. The final score was 16.5 to 11.5 in favor of Europe. It was a bad result, a painful one. But what happened immediately after the last putt dropped turned a tough loss into something far worse. Phil Mickelson walked into the post-tournament press conference and publicly tore Tom Watson apart. In front of cameras, reporters, and a live global audience, Mickelson criticized Watson's leadership decisions and tactics. He talked about the pod system that Paul Azinger had used back in 2008 and how that approach worked better. He made it clear, without too much ambiguity, that Watson had done it the wrong way. Now here is where Trevino came in, because there is a number you need to keep in mind. At that point, Mickelson had been part of 10 Ryder Cup teams, 10 appearances, and in those 10 appearances, he had won just twice. His match record was 16 wins, 19 losses, and 6 halves. A winning percentage sitting at 46.3. He had lost more than he had won across a decade of Ryder Cups. Trevino was direct about it. He told Golf Channel that Mickelson's behavior was reprehensible. He said Mickelson could say whatever he liked, but he felt it would have landed better coming from a player like Patrick Reed, who had gone 3 wins, 0 losses, and 1 half in that same tournament, rather than from someone who had been part of so many losing campaigns. Then came the line that cut straight to the bone. Trevino said simply, "If I had a losing record in the Ryder Cup, I would keep my mouth shut." Consider Trevino's own Ryder Cup history alongside that statement. 6 appearances, 17 wins, 7 losses, 6 halves. A winning percentage of 66.7. His team never lost when he was in the side, not once in 6 tries. So when he tells Mickelson to stay quiet, he is not being cruel. He is stating a principle that sits at the very foundation of his worldview. The right to publicly criticize belongs to those who have earned it through results. Mickelson's record had not earned him that right, and Tom Watson, who had poured 2 years of his life into that captaincy, deserved far better than to be humiliated on camera by a player with a losing record. That is number 5. The arrogance Trevino identified here was not loud or dramatic. It was the quiet assumption that a losing record still entitles you to an opinion. Trevino had no time for that. Number 4, Tiger Woods. Now we move from professional arrogance into something more personal, something that lives inside the mind. With Mickelson, the issue was loyalty. With Tiger Woods, the issue was self-reliance and what happens when you lose trust in your own game. Trevino was a vocal critic of Tiger's reliance on a long succession of swing coaches throughout his career. Butch Harmon was first, from 1993 to 2003, and Trevino felt that era worked because Harmon respected Tiger's natural feel and power. Then came Hank Haney from 2004 to 2010, pushing things in a more mechanical direction. Sean Foley followed from 2010 to 2014, a period Trevino described as one of clear confusion in Tiger's swing. Then Chris Como arrived in 2014, and by that point, Trevino had heard enough. In 2014, Trevino said it out loud. He stated that Tiger is only going to come back if he does not get another guru. Because if he gets another guru, that person is going to start changing him again, and he has got to swing the way that person swings. Trevino said Tiger has got to do this on his own. That statement captures everything Trevino stands for. He grew up taking it out of the ground. His game came from feel, from repetition, from an honest relationship between his hands and the club. No outside voice told him how to do it. He worked it out himself, and he believed that the truly great players, the Ben Hogans, the Jack Nicklauses of the sport, arrived at their best golf through thousands of hours of solitary practice, not through a new set of technical prescriptions every 2 or 3 years. What confused Trevino most was something he observed in Tiger's game during that difficult period. Tiger would hit a bad shot when his swing felt comfortable and a good shot when it felt uncomfortable. To Trevino, that was a signal of a player who had been so deeply intellectualized by coaches that he had completely lost touch with his natural instincts. That disconnection, in Trevino's view, was its own form of arrogance. The belief that you can rebuild and manufacture greatness through constant outside instruction, rather than trusting the immense talent already living inside you. And there was a telling moment that Trevino brought up publicly. When Chris Como reportedly called Trevino asking for advice on chipping, Trevino made sure people knew about it. His point was simple. If the man teaching the greatest golfer in the world needs to call someone else for answers, what exactly is the value of the whole guru arrangement? Number 3, Bernhard Langer. Now we shift from mental arrogance to social arrogance, the kind that does not say a word but costs everyone around it an enormous amount of time. Bernhard Langer is a 2-time Masters champion and a genuinely brilliant golfer. His record speaks clearly, but across his career, Langer built a very different kind of reputation among his peers. He was known as one of the slowest players in the professional game, and Trevino had a line for it that became one of the most quoted barbs in all of golf. He was clean-shaven when we teed off. That is Trevino saying that by the time the round was over, Langer had been moving so slowly that the man had grown a beard in the time it took to finish 18 holes. It is a funny line, but what is sitting beneath it is not funny at all. It is a serious accusation. Langer received a 500-pound fine at the 1985 Players' Championship for slow play on the final hole. Given the prize pools on offer at that level of the game, 500 was essentially meaningless. It changed nothing. At the 1995 Ryder Cup, Paul Azinger suggested that the pairing of Langer and Nick Faldo would need a same-day rule, meaning you would have to start the match the day before if you wanted any chance of finishing it on time. Golf Punk magazine went further, naming Langer the slowest player in the history of professional golf, and when Langer eventually moved to the Champions Tour for senior play, those who had to compete alongside him noted that the pace had not improved one bit. Trevino came from a world where the pace of play was a psychological tool. Gambling matches in El Paso were not conducted in a 5-hour bubble. You moved, you played, and you kept the game flowing. In that environment, dragging your feet was a sign of weakness. So when Trevino sees a professional golfer taking an edge over every shot, treating every putt like it carries the weight of the universe, he does not see dedication or professionalism. He sees arrogance, the quiet, fussy arrogance of a player who believes the entire world should pause and hold its breath while they find their perfect preparation. Trevino claimed he had no pride on the hole. His job was to put the ball in the cup and move to the next tee. Clean, simple, fast. Langer, in his view, had forgotten that the game belongs to everyone on the course, not just the man taking longest to play it. Number 2, Mac O'Grady. Here's where the arrogance gets almost painfully self-destructive. Mac O'Grady was one of the most technically extraordinary golfers of his era. He could play equally well right-handed and left-handed. His golf swing was considered by many observers to be as close to mechanical perfection as anything the sport had ever produced. He was a genuine marvel, but O'Grady spent years locked in a bitter conflict with the PGA Tour and its commissioner, Dean Beeman. The heart of it was this. O'Grady believed he was right, the institution believed he was wrong, and O'Grady refused to back down, even as the fines and suspensions piled up and his career quietly began to unravel. Trevino's advice cut straight to the point. He told O'Grady, "You can afford to swallow your pride and take your medicine." Trevino was not saying the system was fair. He understood institutional politics better than most. He had faced resistance from the establishment from his first day on tour. He knew what it felt like to be treated as an outsider, to be the man who did not quite fit the image of what professional golf was supposed to look like. But instead of burning everything down in a war he could not win alone, Trevino found a smarter path. He used humor. He used the Merry Mex persona. He outplayed every room he walked into and let the scorecards make his argument for him. O'Grady could not find that path. His conviction in his own technical and moral correctness was absolute, and Trevino saw that conviction as the ultimate luxury a professional golfer cannot afford. Pride is wonderful in private. On a tour card, when suspensions cost you starts and fines cost you income, pride becomes a slow leak that eventually drains everything. A golfer with the most perfect swing in the world who cannot play because he is suspended is no golfer at all. Trevino believed that even the most gifted players must occasionally accept the medicine the institution hands them, not because the institution is always right, but because your career is more important than your point. O'Grady had the ability to compete with the very best. He simply never found a way to compete with his own pride. Number 1. Tony Jacklin. This is the one. This is where everything Trevino stands for comes into sharpest focus. The story goes back to 1972 and the Open Championship at Muirfield in Scotland, but it sits at number 1 because the lesson inside it is the deepest of them all. Trevino was the defending champion. He had won the Open the year before and was back to defend his title. Tony Jacklin was the British hero, one of the finest players in the world at that time, and carrying the hopes of an entire nation on his shoulders. By the final round on that Sunday, these two men were locked together at the top of the leaderboard. Before they walked to the first tee, Jacklin turned to Trevino and said, "Lee, I do not want to talk today." Trevino looked back at him without missing a beat. "I do not want you to talk. I just want you to listen." That is the line. And what makes it extraordinary is how much it reveals about what Trevino truly believed. When Jacklin asked for quiet, he was not just making a personal request about his own focus. He was trying to dictate the terms of the battle before it had even started. He wanted a version of that final round that suited him. A controlled, silent environment where he could manage his concentration without the noise and chatter Trevino was famous for producing. To Trevino, that was arrogance. Not the shouting kind, the polite kind, the kind that smiles and says, "Would you mind changing the way you compete so that I feel more comfortable?" Trevino used his voice as a weapon. His talk, his jokes, his relentless commentary. It was part of how he managed his own rhythm and kept competitors slightly off balance. Jacklin was asking him to put that weapon down. Trevino had no intention of doing any such thing. The par 5 17th hole settled it all. Both men were tied at the top. Jacklin was 15 feet from the cup, looking at a genuine birdie chance. Trevino was in the rough at the back of the green in a position that looked impossible, and then Trevino chipped it into the hole. From the rough under the most suffocating pressure imaginable, he holed out for par. Jacklin could not handle what he had just witnessed. He three-putted from 15 feet and dropped a shot. From tied at the top with 2 holes left to trailing by 1 in a matter of minutes. The championship was gone. Trevino finished at 278 and won by a single stroke, successfully defending his Open title, a feat that had not been achieved since Arnold Palmer back in 1962. Afterwards, Trevino declared himself the greatest chipper in the world. Some people raised an eyebrow at that, but Trevino would have called it a simple fact. He had holed out 4 times during that tournament. The numbers backed the claim. That is the Trevino way. You earn the right to say it, then you say it. So there they are. 5 names, 5 very different faces of the same problem. Phil Mickelson opened his mouth when his record should have kept it shut. Tiger Woods handed his game to an endless rotation of coaches when his own feel and instinct were more than enough. Bernhard Langer moved through every round like time belonged to him personally and the rest of the field could wait. Mac O'Grady chose the luxury of being right over the reality of staying relevant. And Tony Jacklin tried to shape the terms of a championship before the first shot of the final round had even been struck. 5 different styles of arrogance, one consistent standard holding them all accountable. Trevino never believed that humility was a weakness. He saw it as what happens naturally when a player truly understands the game. Golf does not care about your reputation. It does not care what you have won before, how famous your name is, or how many people are watching. The ball still needs to go in the hole. The card still needs to be signed. And if you start believing that your ego entitles you to special treatment, the course will correct you with a ruthlessness that no coach or guru or press conference can soften. That is what Trevino spent his career protecting. Spent his, not just his own record, the integrity of a game that demands you earn every single thing it gives you. Confidence is not arrogance when it is backed by results. The players who understand that are the ones who last and leave something worth remembering behind them. The ones who forget it end up as cautionary tales. And that is Lee Trevino's greatest contribution to this game. If you enjoyed this, hit like and subscribe. Drop a comment below and tell us which of these 5 moments hit hardest. Was it the line about keeping your mouth shut? Was it the chip in at 17? Was it the guru speech? Let us know what you think.